What is up, my people? Thank you for coming through. I appreciate you. If you're here because you want to get better at fighting games, I got some information that I think you might just like. So stay tuned for the video. Thank you. This is my first video in my Injustice tutorial series set up to help us grow in gaming together. Using Starfire as my demonstrator, I'm gonna run through every single basic attack she has with you and tell you which ones are the best ones to use and why. Look out for my other videos where I talk about the other attacks and go in depth on how you can tell which attacks work best for each character. For instance, all characters usually have a jab and some configuration of a parry, and although they're really basic moves, they're fundamental moves that you really need to have down pat. Trust me, they will get you out of a lot of really sticky situations. But to put it short, not all characters' jabs are their best assets, so stay tuned for that video. In this video, however, I'll be using Starfire and explain why her jab, while it's great because of its speed, isn't actually her best move. I know, surprising, right? But yeah. So here we have moves list. In most fighting games, you access it by hitting options on your controller. You should see the moves list right after. On the moves list, you have move inputs with the name of the move and the input. Then beside that, you have move data and frame data. In the move data section, you have move types, which consists of low, mid, and high. These just say, are you aiming for the feet, are you aiming for the body, or are you aiming for the head, basically. Damage is the damage your opponent would take from your move, and block damage means if they block your move, here's how much damage they still take. The first move on our list is light bursts, which is literally just a jab. The reason I say it's not Starfire's best is because while it is one of her quickest moves, it puts her in harm's way and leaves her open, especially if it gets blocked. And the damage payoff isn't the highest, but it could be worse. Like Princess Kick. Princess Kick has its uses and the damage payoff is higher than Light Burst, but there's a higher chance of your move being interrupted since it takes a while to load up the move and there isn't enough pushback. Side Scratch to me is a much better option of the three, since it helps give some distance. It'll get them even if they're crouching to block, and there's a less chance of them punishing this move since there's that distance. Tamaranian Swipe is okay, but it does take a while to load up the move. Not as long as Princess Kick, don't get me wrong, but the recovery time is definitely worse. But if you're looking for good mid attacks, I definitely just stick with Side Scratch. You're safer at a distance and it pulls your opponent's feet out from right under them. And getting back up makes any player vulnerable to follow through attacks from the other player. Now, these next three are my personal favorites for different reasons. The Star Strike, while it takes a while to load up, if you're in need of a high attack, like for example, they jump at you and are in air, this move is virtually unblockable. But if they do somehow block it, then you're still safe and you have an advantage and can counter with another move. Now, let's talk Warlord's Lunge. This move is a straight headshot that deals a ton of damage if it lands, and it'll give you time to add more combo moves. However, if they do block, you're kind of screwed. So although it's a great move, use it with caution. The Starbolt I-Beams is another damaging move, but it's unfortunately one of the riskiest to me. One, you're on the ground, and two, if they block you, they have a huge advantage. So again, use with caution. Twinkle Kick is a slow move to start up and a harder move to follow up in a combo series. Why it does so much damage, I have no idea. Physics just got thrown straight out the window with this one. If you do use this one, honestly, just use it to gain an opening, back up, and follow through with a long range attack. Save yourself the heartache, honestly. But if they do block you, it won't be so bad as some of the other moves at least. It would really just depend on your quick reaction time. Now, Charge Star Punch is a pretty fun move if you ask me. It's a slow one, but with how much damage it does, this one might be a little bit more worth it. You know, assuming you use it correctly. Even if they block it, they still take some damage, and you still get the upper hand in the end when it comes to timing and going to your next move. And if you want to change the scenery, this'll be your move. It'll work with a meter burn, but you know, I'd rather just save my meter for clashes and, you know, my character power move. FYI, the meter is basically that bar in the lower corner that fills up as the fight progresses. Moving on, the Star Beam is a great move for knocking down your opponent, then diving at them. It's a harder move to block, especially if you have them cornered. It does tons of damage, and since you'll have some distance, the fact that it's a really slow move won't be as bad, especially since you come out on top if they block you. Now, low beam and full low beam are moves that are pretty risky if you ask me, because if they block you, again, kinda screwed. It's also a pretty slow move to start, you know. Not one of my favorite moves, I gotta say. But it does do a great job of taking the other person off their feet in a very smooth, clean, sweeping motion. But since it takes so long to reposition yourself and going into the move was slow enough to begin with, you gotta ask if the payoff was really all that worth it. Plus, any move with, you know, those annoying diagonal arrows is harder for me to pull off. And in a match, it's not really the best idea to be fumbling around with controls. So this next category is just chock full of jumping, which right off the bat will put you at a huge disadvantage. First off, quick burst just is not worth it. The move needs expert level timing, like just really on the dot and concise. The chance of them blocking is high since, you know, you both kind of be on a level playing field with being in midair. And since it is a midair, the follow through to another move is just so dangerously slow that you gotta wonder why this move is even here, honestly. No, that's harsh, but yeah. And same thing with Alien Boot, except, you know, they'd be nice and comfy on the ground while you're up in the air being hella extra. Sweeping Beam, full Sweeping Beam, Away, and Full Away are all significantly better options than the last two in terms of risk, damage payoff, and blocking, but are still slower moves that you would still need expert timing or a hell of a lot of practice to master. And just using these moves feel kind of awkward, especially if you're not one who's familiar with the claw method of holding a controller. If you are, congrats, good to go. Maybe not maybe. The last bit is honestly just a bit of advice for your controllers. For the throw moves, just use L1 and R1. It's a lot easier, less complicated. It's if you're using a DualShock controller. But yeah, that's all I have for today. Thank you guys so much for sticking through to the end. Please like, comment, share, let your friends know we out here, and I'll come back at you next week with my video on frame data.